friends. So from here on, we discuss Eliot's adoption of the religious drama that he wrote in his dramatic or literary career. And let's start with this particular comment that Eliot made in 1959. And I quote, he said, "Many of my earlier poems appear in retrospect, as I look back at them, to have been striving, so to speak, toward the condition of drama." Now just see how careful he is in his phrasing. He is using so many qualifiers, but basically what he says is that he was moving very slowly but firmly towards drama in his writing. And why did that happen? Why was he so conscious about the new form emerging in his mind that he would adopt it for expression? These are the questions that we have to discuss with ourselves, with our friends somewhere. And then, we will be clear about how Eliot, in the second part of his career, took to the drama form so very seriously. I can consider that he wrote not much poetry of consequence, of importance in the 40s, 50s, 60s when he died. So he is now taking up drama in a big way in those years, and that there must be some reasons, and he is giving those reasons. That his early poems always point towards the existence of drama in his own case. In defining his aim as a playwright, Eliot correlates poetry with characters, situations, and speech of his day. Now this is important. Of course, the drama has to be always very close to the reality of the time, but then he's putting emphasis on character, situation, and speech of his day. Day is important. The time in which people speak, the time in which certain situations occur. That is of prime importance. And see the words that he is using in order to explain this theme. He says, to bring back to the stage, to accustom the public to plays written in verse. Okay, first thing is to accustoming them to hear lines spoken on the stage in verse, but concerned with contemporary society and with characters taking in contemporary idiom. So these two things are important. Contemporary society, contemporary idiom. So he will not talk about history here, as he did in the case of Murder in the Cathedral, which was written earlier, but he will talk about the contemporary situation there, contemporary society. It's really ironical that when he talks about contemporary society, he talks about the urban society, he talks about people who have already made their careers in philosophy, in politics, in economics, whatever kind of characters he would pick up in the army. So he will call it contemporary society, and then contemporary idiom. So idiom also would be of that society he is capturing, which is picking up from around him, and this is what is shown in the early plays that he writes. So now that we have discussed Eliot's life as a writer of drama in general, and the necessity under which he became finally the dramatist of the 20th century in the literal sense, that he started talking about the society of the 20th century, and he started using the idiom of the 20th century. So both these things are important for Eliot, and we can consider him properly only when we put him in this context. So this is, I think, a fairly important background to understand, to make sense of the play that we will be discussing in this part of the discussion. And the play I take up is Murder in the Cathedral. I have talked very briefly about it in the preceding analysis, but I was at that point of time telling you that a poet coming first to drama, dabbling with or experimenting with the religious theme, finally becomes a dramatist in a major sense. But then the best fruit perhaps for us, the best product of this kind of imagination that he earned in the 1940s, 50s, started with Murder in the Cathedral, and he was in fact asked to write this play by a particular organization, and it's a religious organization that approached him to write this play. It was a commissioned play. It was a play meant for a particular occasion, and he wrote it. And I think that set the trend in his life later, where he thought that expressing through the dramatic mode his opinions, his views, and his vision would be perhaps more fruitful. So we have this Murder in the Cathedral with us, and let's discuss its aspects in brief. Its performance happened in 1935, and it was in two parts. And let's discuss the two parts. Two parts were different only in the context of their setting. It was mainly in the cathedral. So cathedral has two parts. The first part is the Archbishop's Hall, where he talks to the audience, and the second part is the first scene is Archbishop the Hall, and then it is outside it. So we will discuss it. We will keep it in mind as we discuss. But let's have a look at the characters in the play. Chorus of Women of Canterbury. This is the first characters, set of characters. Sometimes it can be a single woman, sometimes it can be two women or maybe more women, and these women speak to no one in particular. Maybe they are discussing among themselves. If it is just a woman, then she is expressing her opinion about the happenings on the stage. In any case, it's an old tradition. It's a tradition of the Greek drama, where there was chorus, and people generally related very closely to the opinion and to the views of the chorus. So chorus is very important. Chorus has been completely discarded, not completely in the literal sense, but discarded in the sense that nobody uses chorus. Some characters in the play might perform the function of chorus, but chorus as a category is missing in even Shakespeare and later playwrights. But then Eliot had the literary courage, imaginative courage, to bring back that tradition of the chorus in the actual sense. So we have in this play women who would just chant, who would just express themselves as if they were talking to themselves, and therefore these characters appear on the stage. They might stand in a corner, they might talk among themselves, but when you hear them, then you realize that they are talking either about the society in which they live, or they are talking about the themes that are being pursued in the play on the stage. So it's a very important category, and sometimes in the exam, when you discuss this play, a question can be asked on the role of the chorus in the play, and you're supposed to explain what exactly is done by the women who are not a part of the action, but who are generally there as observers, and they have their own opinion. And in a way, when you have some characters on the stage as observers with opinions, then do you know what happens? Then you start relating with them, because they are very close to you, they are very close to me, because all of us are watching the play and we have an opinion we are making an opinion about the happening on the stage, and then that there are characters on the stage who do the same. So we start listening to them, and in the light of what they say, we start examining our own opinions, and then we start relating so well with them that we accept their opinion. So this play is using that thing, and that's something that we have to keep in mind. Then there are three priests. What are the priests doing in Murder in the Cathedral? Would they save the person who is going to be murdered? You have to ask this question from yourself. At the beginning of the play, that priests are supposed to protect the life of the person who is there in the church. But will they be able to, or would they like to? This is the question that you will face while watching this play. In fact, the priests are inactive. They just observe. They feel helpless. They have a kind of sympathy for Beckett, the Archbishop. The Archbishop is the person who is to be murdered, and they want that he should live, but they don't know how to preserve his life. So these three priests are there. Eliot, being a dramatist here, is giving them specific personalities. So you will be really surprised pleasantly that the three priests are actually three priests. So and they have slightly different opinions about the event that is going to happen in front of them. Then you have the major character, Archbishop Thomas Beckett. He became a big myth in the medieval period, and he lives in the hearts of the Christians even in the 20th century. He also has some people who faced similar situations in their own life, and one particular example can be cited here, the example of Thomas More in the 16th century, where the more or less the same kind of dilemma of life was associated with his behavior. So anyway, we are concerned only with Thomas Beckett here, and he faces a dilemma, and the dilemma is that he has been given the office of the Archbishop, the religious leader, the religious guide, the religious preserver of people's souls, and when the king asks him to do something different, then he doesn't know what to do. Should he follow his dictum that might come from the Pope of Rome, and the dictum is about God, or should he follow the demands of the king, who is his master in this world? So this question we may not face as kind of concern today as the earlier people in the earlier period would do, but then this is definitely a question that is worth considering. The question, let me repeat, is whether you have to be loyal to God or whether you have to be loyal to your master in this world, that is the king in the context. God is your master overall, but then in this world the master of the person is king. So the loyalty, can it be shifted? This is the question, and Thomas Beckett bears the weight of this question through the play, and towards the end he has become very conscious that he will do what God allows him, but there are lots of ifs and buts there also, and so we because those ifs and buts are the crux of this play, therefore they emerge only in the process of watching the play, reading the play, or discussing the play. We have once again 4 tempters, and these tempters straight away take us to the 20th century. Those tempters were there also in the 12th century, which the playwright captured. And what is the role of the tempters? Think about, are there temptations in our own life in the 19th century, in the 20th century, in the 21st century? Temptations of money, temptations of success, temptations of career, temptations of selfishness. All these temptations are there. Are they working in our minds? Eliot, raises this question in a very serious manner, and he has 4 tempters, and they tempt Thomas Beckett to follow the dictum of the king, which means perhaps that they have been sent by the king to spoil, to infect his soul with falsehood, and will Thomas Beckett then allow them to soil his or corrupt his soul, because they are putting temptations. We all of us know, that the person with money would always tell us, do this for me, I'll give you this money, and in fact what else is important? The important thing is only success in life. So if somebody says it, what do? Do you want to be truthful or do you want to be successful? So this is the kind of temptation that works in the cases of most of the people who live in societies of this kind. And Eliot is simultaneously writing about the 12th century and the 20th century. Temptations were there in the 12th century, and tempters were there, and these tempters may be on the stage as 4 people, but actually they might be 4 voices that emerge in the mind of the character of the character, that is Thomas Beckett, and then he is working it out in his own mind. So whatever way you want to take it, it's a drama of that kind. It's a drama that happens on the stage, it's a drama that happens in society, it's a drama that happens in the mind of the character. So there are 2 scenes, there are 2 parts of the play, the first part and the second part, and then the play finishes. The scene is of Archbishop Hall, and second scene is in the Cathedral. This I already told you. And then the last and set of characters are actually 4 knights. So these 4 knights are the murderers. Who knows that there are 4 tempters and 4 knights? I believe that Eliot was thinking of every tempter turning a murderer, and every murderer justifying the ideas of the tempters that were presented earlier. So they can be put together, that they can be merged into each other, and in fact these tempters, since they attack our soul at a very subtle level, therefore when they attack our soul, they finally kill it. So at issue in this play is the behavior, the conduct, the norms, the principles of the soul of Archbishop, who is the human being. And the human being is surrounded by these temptations, and there are people, if you don't follow them, if you don't follow the dictum of if you don't accept the principles and norms of the tempters, then you will get killed. And who will kill you? The tempters themselves will make conditions in which one is killed, and therefore Eliot has personified, he has turned into persons these tempters into the knights. Now the knights are people who don't have an opinion of their own. Most of the knights were servants of the king. So the fight actually is between Archbishop and the king, and the king has sent these 4 knights to murder him. And finally they would murder, but would he accept the murder? This is the question, and this question is actually the concern of the play. The setting is 1170. 1170 is the 12th century, and that's why I thought that I should give you a general view of this particular play. Then the themes. Already I have indicated the themes, but let me just explain them. Flesh versus spirit. Flesh is body, flesh is this world, flesh is the life that we live. Spirit is something which is behind our actions, that operates in our mind, that operates in our heart, that approaches in our spirituality. Spirit and spiritual are words that are deeply joined, intimately connected with each other. So if you have the spirit, then you are a spiritual person. All religious people are spiritual in that sense, and spirituality generally rejects the flesh, the demands of the flesh, the demands of the body. And this theme is discussed, this theme is presented, is shared with the audience at a very subtle level, in fact a very intense level in the play. Thomas's disregard for earthly pleasures. Now, not that he was a born archbishop, or he was born in a religious background. He was a man of practical world. He was actually the right hand man of the king, and he would do everything in order to serve the cause of the king. But then one day the king asked him, "Why don't you, from my side, go to the church and play a game?" And he said, "I can't play any game, but if you want to send me there, I'll go there." But and then when he goes there and becomes the archbishop, then he has to take dictum for, as I said earlier, from the Pope of Rome, and what he considers the godly presence in his mind. So there is a clear dichotomy between the interests that he implemented earlier, practiced earlier, let him guide earlier, and the interests that guide him at the present time, when he has become a representative of God on the earth through the Pope of Rome. He is not then interested in any form of temporal power. See the words very carefully used by the people there in the play. So he earthly pleasures and temporal power. So neither pleasures nor power. Pleasures are actually pleasures of the body, of the senses. You eat, drink, you make merry. These are the pleasures, but you have to discard them. You can't observe them when you are a man of the church. That's one. And the second problem is of the temporal power, the power of this world. Temporal power is the power of the king. Temporal power is the power of the court. Temporal power is the power of administrators. And when you are caught in the particular web of the temporal power, then you are totally separated from the power of God. So see the kind of problem that all of us face when there is a kind of dichotomy between the spiritual interests and the temporal interests. Spiritual interests are the interests of the soul, interests of your morality, interests of the norms that you are supposed to adhere to. And temporal power is that which has its own logic, and you lose your self in the process of living, and therefore temporal power takes it from you, all the spirit, all the sense of living on your own terms. In part 2, the problems that I cited, they were presented in the first part in a very fine manner, very effective manner, and Eliot is using his language, his words, his images very strongly, and they are very moving in their nature. And so if you are watching a play, if you are reading this play, then you are entirely in the grip of the influence that these words suggest in the course of the play. In the second part, Beckett says that martyrdom is never the design of man. It's a very difficult concept. If you want to become martyr, you can't become martyr. It's not the design of man. Design of man, the plan of man, the aim of the person. So you cannot say, I'll live the life of a martyr. If you do that, then of course you are following certain principles of success in a domain where success is not needed. So never design martyrdom for yourself. Human beings cannot design martyrdom for themselves. This is a play about martyrdom. Somebody became a martyr, but it doesn't mean that he had plans to become a martyr. It only means that he was placed in a situation where he could not pursue his ordinary ideas, his simple ideas, his ideas of innocence, which are simple but very profound. So he wanted to pursue them, and he was not allowed to pursue. And when his wish went against the orders, then they tried to kill him, and he became a martyr. So he wanted to become a martyr, just like that he planned it. He didn't plan his own murder. So that's what Beckett says, that it is never the design of man. And then he gives the reason. The true martyr is he who has become the instrument of God. So God has decided to put you in a situation where it will be difficult for you to survive under principles of ungodliness or anti-godliness, and therefore you have to stick to God. And when you stick to God, then something is going to happen. What is going to happen? You may know, you may not know, but then it's not in your hands. And then he says, who no longer desires anything for himself. So for whom do you desire? You have to think about this question, because then the question of desire is not important at all. It's supposed to be a kind of role that you have to perform. It's a kind of duty that you have to observe, and the duty and that role is not yours. So no longer one who desires, a person doesn't desire anything for himself. So the dictum will come, the order will come from somewhere else. In the case of normal living, it comes from the king. In the higher living of the soul, of the moral norms, etc., it will come from God. So therefore, these things are important. They are not in your hands. For Thomas Beckett, that is, all things proceed for a joyful consummation, and martyrdom, says Thomas Beckett's first statement on entry in the first part of the play, and with that I'll finish the discussion. But let's think about first, all things proceed to a joyful consummation. It's a very loaded word. It's a very loaded expression. All things means all the conditions of life, all the plans of life, all the drives of life, all the entire guiding spirit of life itself. So life in its entirety, it proceeds to, it leads to, it takes you to a joyful consummation. What a fine word, what a beautiful word, that joyfully you consummate. Consummate means reach a height of experience, and that height has to be joyful, it has to be great, it has to be kind of bliss. So that ecstasy, that bliss, that joy which can be consummated through martyrdom, that is what he is discussing. So in a way, then death is not death. Death means joining God. Death means fighting for a cause. And you bear it, at that point of time with satisfaction, because it's not, the order has come from somewhere, and the order has come from God. And when God gives you order to give your life for His cause, then you become joyful, and then you are actually enjoying what is called the state of bliss. So this is what I had to say about the issues that Eliot presented in the play. So finally, in the last few minutes, I'll just read out the famous lines of Thomas Beckett that he said right in the beginning of his own role in life, and just see how beautiful the lines are, and with them I'll finish. He says to the audience, and audience means not the people on the stage alone. Audience also means all of us who are watching the play. So if you've gone to watch a play, The Murder in the Cathedral, written by T.S. Eliot, directed by somebody, enacted by actors, etc., then a person called Beckett, Thomas Beckett, Archbishop Thomas Beckett, he'll straight away enter the stage and he will address us, tell us. What does he say? And in fact, he's also saying this to himself. He says, peace. That's a whole sentence. Peace, full stop. And let them be in their exaltation. Now just see, this is a very power-packed speech. Eliot doesn't make him say, who are they? He says, let them be in their exaltation. Let them be happy in their own manner. I don't bother. I want peace. They speak better than they know. This is a very, very good line. You know something, but you can speak better. But then, which means that you don't know what you are saying. You speak better than they know, and beyond their understanding. They can't even understand what they are saying. I think the lines are very close to the biblical line. They don't know what they are doing. So these people, says Thomas Beckett, they know not what they are doing, and it is what they say is, what they speak is beyond their understanding. They know and do not know. They think they know, but actually they don't know. They know and do not know that action is suffering and suffering action. Please interpret them, and in the context of the play, then action is suffering and suffering is action, and this is to be taken further. And then he says, neither does the agent suffer nor the patient act. These people think, that the agent think that he is carrying the suffering inside him, or the patient is acting, but no, the command comes from somewhere else. So the patient is performing a role, the agent is performing a role, but both are fixed in an eternal action. The action actually is eternal. You are only a part of it at one point, but then the action has a beginning much before it started, and it will remain in action even after you have ceased to exist. So an eternal patience to which all must consent, that it may be willed, desired, and which all must suffer, that they may will it, that the pattern may subsist. For the pattern is the action. So action is not just the moment, the pattern is the action, plan is the action, and the suffering, that the wheel may turn and still be forever still. The wheel is turning, but you don't know that it's turning. I think he has the movement of the earth in mind, he has the movement of time in mind, and this is the kind of language that is used by T.S. Eliot. It's a power-packed, thematically rich, meaningful language, and that in this language he is able to project before us the spirituality, the fight with self, the purity of the person called Thomas Beckett. So this is how the person would be murdered later, but then he wouldn't bother about his life. Because he has lived life to the full, and actually in his death is a kind of bliss, as he has said earlier. So I hope you have followed the discussion the way Eliot has presented it. Focus upon the words, see how they are used, and then think of Eliot as a writer of imagination and of vision. Thank you.